Hey, how's it going? Conrad here. Today is a very special day. I'm going to go through my very first Well Aware Operations Teardown, at least ones that the ones that I plan on publishing. I have totally tried to do this before, and I think I've just psyched myself out of presenting some of my more rantish approaches to the various operations that I tend to live and breathe in on a day-to-day basis. So what is Well Aware Operations Teardown? In a nutshell, I'm going to be breaking down an operation to its grassroots to really show you the sort of ways of thinking that I go about in my approach, and I hope you'll take away something that can be quite useful with respect to the specific operation in question, or for just thinking about operations on the whole. Today, I want to go through one of my tried and true favorites. I mean, I'm practically obsessed with it. For those of you that know me well, I want to talk about introduction management. So let's get right into it. The operation of making introduction sounds really simple at the very high level. I want to make an introduction. Okay, let's flesh that out. An introduction is going to require a couple of things. It's going to require two people, presumably, a person one and a person two. And amongst those two people, there's going to be an email or a message, a direct message, some kind of channel which I communicate between these two people, and I'm trying to facilitate this connection, right? So presumably the context or the general information behind this DM is going to be, hey, you two, I would like the two of you to get connected. And if we stopped right there, I would probably call that level 0 of the op. I mean, it's really, really straightforward. I know this sounds obvious to so many, but at the same time, I also know that this sounds overly simplistic. In fact, it's too simple, and it leaves a lot in wanting. I would say if you're going to make an introduction super, super fast and super, super quick, and ideally, if and only if you had the ability to talk to person A and person B and kind of get them both aware of the fact that an introduction is going to be made between the two of them, the more specific you can already have been about the context behind why these two people should be connecting, the better. But needless to say, that is probably the only situation in which I could operate on level 0 operation of, I need an introduction. Okay, I've got two people. I'm going to get their contact information. I'm going to put them together, whether it's an email, so I'm going to get their email addresses. Maybe it's LinkedIn. I'm going to grab their two profiles. LinkedIn has that direct messaging experience where I can group message people. Take any other situation you got, maybe Facebook, what have you. I can put together an email, pre-templated no less, to just say, hey, the two of you should connect. I'm looking forward to hearing how it goes, and then hit send. And that is the absolute fastest way you can perform this operation. But again, it leaves a lot in wanting. And here's why. I think level 1, the actual starting place, the fundamentals of a good introduction should be, again, same scenario. I've got two people's contact information. I'm going to combine the two. I'm going to introduce the two and facilitate a connection through whatever direct message system I have. And I could even go so far, or I could even go so little, really, to not actually say anything about each of the two relationships, right? I could rely on trust and pre-existing experience with these two contacts and just know that, between me and them, they're going to understand what I'm saying in introductions to them, that these are good introductions, it's going to be good use of their time. I think a lot of people operate at this level of structure sustainably. Hopefully they're going to add a couple of bits, this one little extra clip into their operation. That's going to be the context behind why these two people should meet. Now again, hopefully in a perfect world, you got a chance to talk to person A and person B in advance of the official introduction email or the official introduction direct message. And you could tell them, hey, here's the reason why I want to connect you with this person, right? And you're going to say that to each of these parties, maybe kind of give them their particular perspective on what's in it for them. And as a result, they're already prepared. They're already ready. And again, this goes back to the level 0 operation of an introduction. That'll work for them because they've already received all the context. The reason why I like level 1 is because A, there's a reminder, there's a reason, context, there's a thread and you can go back to and kind of reflect on in retrospect and go, why did we get connected in the first place? You have that information there. So it's a good recap, especially when, as two people get connected, reality sets in. They're not just going to interact right away. It's going to take time for people to get to those direct messages, maybe a couple days, a couple weeks. And by then, you never know when they're actually going to go ahead and meet. So to have that context available there means these two folks don't have to remember the conversations that you may have had with them surrounding why they should be connecting with each other. Again, the reason why I love level 1 at the very simplest is because if I can provide context in an email behind why two people should connect, if I can take that little time that it takes, then I can now actually, I can sort of bypass the need to check in with both relationships, hopefully, depending on the nature of, how close I am to these parties. I can bypass the need to tell them about the introduction in some way, shape, or form, whether it's on call, that takes time, um, despite how easy it is. And despite how long it's been since I'd contacted them, I could get away with it. We'll get into where level 2 and 3 and on kind of start to speak into is like, well, what happens when this situation becomes complex? Because guess what? For a lot of people, even those who struggle at level 1 to say, all right, I want to send an intro, but I need to spend a little bit of time writing that context. There's more. Let's get into level 2. Level 2 is actually introducing the context a little bit more fully. And in some respects, we could even start to dive into almost like a 2A or a 2B, where we start to talk about how, hey, not only should we provide context as to who I'm introducing to whom, but I should probably also check in with my relationships first and say, hey, so-and-so, so person A, would you like to meet person B? Here's everything I want you to know about person B. And here's the context behind why you should be meeting person B for yourself. That is the introduction offer workflow, right? It is a sub workflow that you take. It is an advanced step in which you reach out to someone, check in with them, and say, hey, by the way, I want to introduce you to so-and-so. Here's some information about them. What does that information look like? A LinkedIn profile, a little paragraph. Doesn't even have to be that robust. You can get as simple or as complex as you want. I personally side on the era of having a nice chunky paragraph with like, person A helps X people do Y using Z. He is the position of such, he has the title position of such and such company. And here is a little bit about him, right? That like I can personalize or even, use AI to generate. So that's the intro paragraph for me. And the context, well, again, this is one of the hardest things to kind of, generate even in today's world of AI. Like, what is the reason behind why you're introducing someone to someone else? And typically you're going to know what those reasons are based on your knowledge of your relationship's needs, the relationship's desires, their asks, how you're going about partnering with them. All that's going to facilitate in your mind as a sentence structure around like, the reason I'm connecting the two of you is because you could serve this person, you guys could work together as partners, you should be, this person should be providing a solution to you that you've asked me about, getting help with, so on and so forth, right? Or you could just say, you could be wild with some of these ideas. You could say, hey, I think the two of you should explore this really interesting collaboration, I'm just thinking out loud. Anyway, case in point, the invitation is to do some form of business or to have some form of relationship form. And again, that's level 2. Level 2 is taking that intro offer concept and using it as a means to confirm with relationships that you're trying to introduce that they do indeed want to be introduced with each other. They're willing to spend time to go through your administrative logistics of receiving an introduction email, processing it accordingly, positively, gracefully, and actually committing to meet, right? Because what happens at level 1? What happens at level 0? You offer to introduce two people, and whether the quality of your email just sucked or the people themselves were busy, not really that well connected with you, so on and so forth, if you end up committing this promise to other people that they didn't themselves commit to, and they suddenly go like, hey, I actually can't commit to this promise that you sort of, almost forced me under. That sucks. No one likes that. I'm sorry. So don't do that to people. I mean, if you've been in that shoe, I'm sure you know how it feels. It's like, oh, hey, I really appreciate the introduction, but I can't answer this right now, or this isn't the right fit for me, or I don't believe it might be the right fit for me. Why do you think this is the right fit for me? So I've gotten that experience a lot at the level 1 and 0 levels. And there's a big reason why I bother to go down to level 2 and say, hey, let me take extra time to create an intro offer. Cool. So you've submitted your intro offers, and now you have to go through some more advanced logistics, right? You now have to wait for a response on that introduction offer on both ends. And this kind of becomes this game of saying like, all right, do I get the green light on both sides? Do I get the green light on one side, but the red light on the other? And how do I address that? Because that's a bunch of back and forth, right? This is starting to get taxing. You're trying to be thoughtful and considerate, but you are spending time here. So again, we're going to come back to how we're going to make all of this sustainable at the back end of this operation. But bear with me here. We still have to go through the op. So we hope to receive a response from someone within a reasonable amount of time from person A and person B as to whether or not they are willing to accept introductions that you're proposing to them, or in this case, let's just say the one introduction. And in any case, you're hoping to get a positive response. You're hoping to respond to that positive response, say, hey, like received, I got it. And now you want to kind of give some light as to like, hey, did the other person, if person A said yes and you haven't heard from person B, you want to tell person A, hey, message received, I'll let you know when I hear back from person B, right? What happens if person B declines? All right, go back to person A. Hey, person A, person B declined. So sorry, we'll try again. We'll try again with some other relationship because clearly you had an interest and you saw the fit that I saw. So I'm grateful. Let's go ahead and try this. For person B, hey, sorry it wasn't a fit. Sure you're busy. Maybe a future time. Maybe the fit's not right. And so maybe you're going to kind of workshop how that relationship can still be content with the fact that you at least thought about them. And in the future, you want to think about them, but you want to think about them successfully in terms of like, you want to give them introductions that they are going to accept. So be it. What do you get? No response. Well, after some time, hey, person A, I never ended up hearing back from person B. Like I acknowledge your receipt from when you said yes, but now some additional time has passed. I still haven't heard from person B. If I do end up hearing from them, I'd love to follow back up with you and check if you're still interested and want to meet with person A. That's one way of thinking, in additional layers of thought at this level 2 stage. You could, if person B ends up responding and says, oh, sorry, this took so long. Yes, I'm totally down. Well, person A responded yes, but they responded 1, 2, 3 weeks ago. So is the fit still there? Is the timing still right? Are they still interested? Again, you could choose to check in or not, and then play the dice as you will and see whether or not you end up having a successful introduction experience between two parties or not when you officially go ahead and connect them. Again, this is based on green light scenario. And so we can stop there. We could say, okay, cool, Conrad, we did this really thoughtful, intricate introduction offer workflow, and through it, we were able to succeed in checking in with our relationships and making sure that they were good to go or not good to go on a given introduction. And as a result, we either made an introduction or we didn't. We went back to that sort of level 1, level 0 framework. Again, maybe we took some of the level 2 knowledge that we had and kind of, again, put some thoughtful time and attention into creating this sort of introduction experience so that within the emails that we're sending between these two parties or within LinkedIn, we're providing a very rich or at least succinct introduction of each relationship. And so they have all the information that they might want in order to kind of get a general idea of who it is they're about to talk to and what they might be talking with them about based on you as the facilitator and what your role is to play. Cool. What about level 3? Level 3 is taking all of that we just talked about and then doing due diligence on the back end. So level 3 is now saying, hey, I went through all this effort of making this really thoughtful introduction, and I'm really glad to see, hopefully, that the two parties responded, in whether they be CC or CCU in their sort of, post-intro correspondence to at least show you that they're meeting and talking and getting things worked out. That's great. That's literally what happens all the time, right? You're not responsible as a facilitator necessarily to see that two people get connected, right? That each of them book time on one another's calendar. I've seen some very interesting scenarios where, if you really, know someone really well and they're willing to give you their calendar link, you might want to slip that calendar link into that introduction email. But yeah, it's like, let that person do that for themselves. Let them respond to your introduction and kind of introduce themselves officially and let them sort of give that warm welcome and set of next steps. And let those people figure it out for themselves. At least that's the way I've seen it work most gracefully. And yet, we then move on to the very next important step, which is to check back. Hey, how did this go? So I go 2 weeks. I wait after the initial introduction email, and in 2 weeks' time, I check in. And I go, hey, how'd the conversation go? Where are things at? Did you guys meet yet? If so, how did it go? If not, what's going on? And again, you've got another sort of introduction offer type of back and forth. You got two people hopefully giving you information about how they went about either successfully or unsuccessfully meeting. And even if they did meet, well, what was the outcome? What was the product of that introduction meeting or that introduction call? And so here you have another sort of tree branch of possibilities. People can say they've met and it was good or bad or neutral or, conducive or not conducive to their time. People can tell you that they haven't met yet, and you could decide, well, hey, are you guys still planning on meeting? Is it just, did you just have a, something get lost in translation? Did somebody get busy? You guys were committed at this point. Level 2 caught us here. But level 3 is kind of confirming whether or not we actually are going to meet and going and doing this, right? And you're the facilitator. You are invested in seeing that success. It means a lot to you, right? And we're going to get into why that is because of sustainability and sort of I think the real cream of why we should be investing in our relationships as introduction parties, as facilitators, no less. The outcome of that sort of feedback loop is to identify more than anything else whether two relationships were successfully able to meet, and if so, were they able to meet on positive terms with positive outcomes, so that you can repeat that process again when the next time comes around and you have a good relationship that you can do this again with for either person A or person B, or both, whatever the context may be, right? It's hard to tell in this sort of theory world, like what exactly are you making these introductions for? You're making introductions to someone so they can have more clients, so they can have better providers, so they could have partners. Like what's the definition of success here in your world of making introductions between two people? So, okay, needless to say. So, level 3, the feedback loop. We want to understand more than anything else how successful we were as introduction facilitators and what information we can gather to then proceed with not just making more introductions of like kind, but also to see how this particular introduction that we just made, how is it going to develop? What's going to come next of it? And what do we have to say about it? Like, what do we get out of it as facilitators? Now, this is where some people might start to think like, well, Conrad, like, I don't want to make my introductions transactional. I just want to, be free and make a good intro and then sort of let the world and karma kind of come back to me in some future world. I'm like, dude, that's great. Introductions cost me money. They cost me time. They cost me energy. Thankfully, I've been able to really build efficiencies into my workflow at the levels that I've done it so, given the way that I'm doing it, because I've hired help. And even now, I'm producing software to take that cost down even further because I realize just how valuable introductions are. And I would love to make the cost of performing a really high qualitative intro to literally come down to pennies rather than individual dollars. So, why do I care? Because, and how do I make this whole operation sustainable? Like, why did I just go through this whole workflow of the introduction offer, then the official introduction, then the post-introduction feedback loop, all of that system? And now I'm starting to think like strategically here, like almost as if I already am a partner to these introductions. Hopefully you are. Why am I thinking about what the next introduction should look like based on the success or failure of this particular outcome? Well, because I want stake. I want skin in the game. If I'm helping someone close business because of the introductions that I'm making, I would love a part of that business. I would love a commission. I would love a flat fee. I would love anything, really. I would love a fucking thank you. Pardon my French. I would love appreciation, right? And because we live in an economy where we're no longer trading chickens for horseshoes, I don't want to have to expect of anybody, especially myself, to say that when someone hands somebody else a good referral, a successful referral that leads to closed business, I don't want that relationship to be tied to, okay, well now because you were able to successfully give me an introduction, I now have to give you a successful introduction that is somehow equivalent in value in terms of the amount of business you do. There's just no way. Like, we have a currency for a reason. We have liquid capital for a reason to reflect the fraction of a value that can be performed between two parties and what that equates to with respect to an individual's role in making that whole value possible, right? When I help someone close business, I performed a marketing/sales job, task, role, responsibility. And if I could be compensated for that in kind, then perhaps I can turn a business model around, one in which I just operate as a networker who's going about my day while I'm doing my day job, which is running my company or doing the specific operations of a company. I mean, I could be anybody, really. And you've seen these marketplace business models before, right? Fiverr is one example of them. Most talent agencies, right? Their whole job is to facilitate this connection between a provider and a client. So this is the job that everyone I think should fulfill. I mean, Facebook, LinkedIn, anyone who's running ads, anyone who's running these types of, marketing channels, we are all investing capital in this case and time in many other cases in a variety of ways as well in order to generate attention through a marketplace. In this case, the marketplace is a social forum or a group or some sort of media space, right? And that's how we go about, that's where our marketing and sales budget goes. So why can't we think about an individual who's sort of replacing all of that? And in particular, depending on how good of a networker you are, you could be a really great alternative to, being an entire marketplace or an entire media channel forum. Like you could be so much better because you have intimate knowledge, intimate relationships. Like you're the better bridge, right? You're the better connection between a person who needs business and another person who can facilitate that business, right? The two people that help together. So that to me is just so valuable. And to sit there and just give it all away, I don't mind that. Like if in a perfect world, I wish we could all just do that. But everyone's got to eat. Everyone lives in this economy where it pays to live. So to make this operation sustainable, I really try to call upon, like if you're, however good you can set up this main operation of introductions, you then want to facilitate an operation on top of that, which is partnerships. And the partnerships could be very, very simple. It could be networking partnerships where you're just helping to facilitate introductions. They could be more complex where you're operating with someone as a collaborator in the market. You are creating content together, you are creating package offerings together, you're sort of working in tandem in the sales process. You get more and more complex as you so may see fit. But at the end of the day, you're forming these relationships in which you are agreeing with hopefully everyone that you're doing business with even at an introductory level. And you're saying, hey, listen, I'm not requiring this of you at first. And some people will tell me they have different approaches to this, but I'm not requiring this of you at first. If I make any introductions to you and you successfully close business with them, would you mind giving me a percentage of that? Would you mind giving me a piece of that? Because that way I can pay for the cost that it took me to do that whole thing. And by the way, since we're at it, I now have a successful case study of what a good introduction looks like for you. Let's use that. Let's turn this flywheel again, right? I ran one successful ad, fantastic, and we got a hit. Great. Let's use that, reinvest, and let's go generate another ad. Let's go generate another introduction. And this is where people start to feel like, oh, this is starting to get transactional. This is starting to feel like now the introduction is less and less genuine. And this is where I wholeheartedly disagree. Because as long as you're maintaining quality, in fact, if anything, you're putting more skin as a facilitator to say, hey, listen, my reputation's on the line. If I don't make a good introduction, I have to pay for it somehow. And you're usually going to pay for it in reputation. Like you may feel a bit defamed if you find yourself, it's self-defaming, if you find yourself making introductions and they always prove to be consistently unsuccessful or unwell to people's time. If they feel like they ended up wasting their time with the introductions they made to you, then that sucks, right? That's going to look bad on you. But that's the idea. Make good introductions, be a good word of mouth marketer in your field of relationships. And yes, it will come back to you, but hopefully it will come back to you not just in the sense that eventually people will, you'll find people who are really good at this, just like you are becoming, or just like you are currently, and that they will end up helping you. And they'll give you leads and they'll give you business. And hopefully you'll send them, commission as a result of their efforts so they can sustainably do this over and over again. But you're going to do the same. You're going to be that same relationship to them or that same relationship to others. It doesn't have to be two-way. It could be one way in certain areas, but that's why liquid capital exists, to facilitate that sustainable arrangement, even when the introductions and the business that's being closed is inherently one-sided, meaning you can't both facilitate introductions to one another such that you are each closing business with one another in about the exact same amount of dollar value generated, meaning, that would be a beautiful, perfect barter partnership, chickens and horseshoes. But needless to say, we don't have to come up with such perfect scenarios in order to make networking relationships work at this particular level. And with that, Operations Teardown complete. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy the more refined version of this rant via my wonderful content creator, Lavinia, who she's taken the liberty of reaching out to my executive assistance team, who has helped me tremendously with taking all of my introduction tasks and responsibilities and just letting me sit there and go, hey, Rose, here's an introduction I need to make. I just finished talking with so-and-so, and here's the introduction I need to make between them and this other person. Here's the context why. And they just run with it. They just take that workflow, everything I just talked about, right? They just take that workflow, all the templates that they need, all the data they need to plug and fill in, and they just execute, right? And I don't have to think about that intro. They will not only do the introduction offers, they will also do the introduction itself based on their green lights. If there's red lights, they check back and say, hey, noted, appreciated, thank you for your time. Post-introduction feedback, they'll handle all that as well. They'll gather the data. They'll say, great, grateful you had a good introduction. Oh, sorry, you didn't guys get to have a chance to meet yet. I will check back in again in 2 more weeks' time to see whether or not you actually did meet. So they'll follow through all the way to the end and determine whether or not there was a successful outcome or not. Please stay tuned for the software release of In the Loop by Well Aware. And thank you for your time. Until next time.